Hi everybody, this is Vanessa here from the Craft Corner and welcome to our first Zero Waste sewing project in collaboration with Maynooth Zero Waste. Delighted to run these two workshops, and the very first workshop that we're going to be doing is learning how to make reusable cloth bags. These are made using materials that you'd have in your house. This is an old bed sheet and this is ribbon from a bag. The idea behind these bags is that instead of using plastic bags in the supermarket or to store your fruit, your vegetables, even your mask when you're going out, or all types of things, instead of using single-use plastics, you're using a reusable cloth bag and you're making it using materials that you already have. I'm going to go through the materials you're going to need. They'll be linked in the description below, and I'm also going to run through them in the next part of the video. To make our reusable cloth bag, these are the materials you're going to need. To start off with, we need to make our template. I always use just newspaper, scrap paper, or a bit of cardboard, a paper scissors, a marker, and a ruler. Then you'll need either a material scissors, or you can also use a material cutter like this. You'll need some string or cotton ribbon or something like that for your drawstring. You can use old shoelaces, or you can even make your own ribbon. I'll show you how to do that as well. You'll need some pins, and you'll need a safety pin. And for your material, these are samples of different types of material you could use. These are like old doilies. I actually found these in a charity shop in the like 50-cent section. This was a old top. It was actually a dress of my mother's, and I took it all, I unpicked it all because I love the material but not the style. It's a really lightweight cotton. Then this was a pair of trousers, tweed trousers, and again I unpicked it all and I'm using the scraps of material. And then this was a white cotton bed sheet that I tie-dyed. So lots of ways to use materials that you would already have. And as I already said, this one here, this was actually a bed sheet as well, a duvet cover. I picked it up in a charity shop. It was going for about a couple of euros, or you might have a duvet cover or a pillowcase in your house already. So gather all your materials and we're going to get started making our template. The first thing that you need to decide is how big you want your finished bag to be. You always want to make sure that your bag is a rectangle. If it's too square, it'll be harder to hold things in it, okay? So generally I go for it being a rectangle size. So if you want your finished bag to be 27 by 32, okay, so let's write that down. So I say, right, I want my finished bag to be about 27 by 32 centimeters. I might even say I want it to be a bit skinnier, let's say 25 centimeters by 32 centimeters, okay? So then what I do is I need to add on a seam allowance. For these bags, we only do a seam allowance here. So you need to add on your seam allowance. So to the width, I'm going to add on 3 centimeters, okay? Then to the height, you need your seam allowance at the bottom, 3 centimeters. And you also need to add on space at the top for your gusset. So for this, I add on another 6 centimeters, okay? So this is your final measurements, okay? So to your width, you add on 3 centimeters, and to your height, you add on 9 centimeters, okay? To make your template, you can use cardboard, newspaper. This is just old brown paper I had. So for my width, it's going to be my finished width 25 plus 3 centimeters, which is 28 centimeters. So 28 centimeters wide, 28 centimeters wide, and then my finished height plus 9 centimeters. So that is going to be for me 32 plus 9, which is 41. Once your template's cut out, I always write on the template what it is. So in this case, the Reuse a Bag template. And I also write what the finished dimensions, so the finished size that this template is going to give me, so that I know when I go back again that this is the dimensions that the bag will be in the very end. So you have your template and you're going to lay out the material that you're going to use. I'm going to use this tie-dyed material, and I'm going to start from one edge and I fold it over. So I fold my material over until I have a double layer under my bag. So if you see here, just folding it over, straighten that up until I have a double layer of material. Now, the reason we do this is because then you only need to do one seam here and then one seam here. You don't need to do a seam on this side. So match that up with the straight edge there. And you can use either tailor's chalk, or I just use a marker to mark out the fabric that you're going to cut. Now you can also pin it and cut directly from the pattern, but I find that it is quicker for a project like this to just mark your template. Okay, mark it out and then we're going to cut it. We've cut out our material, and the next part will depend on what method of sewing you're doing and what material scissors you have. If you have a pinking shears, which is a zigzag scissors, then what you need to do is, this is going to be the top, okay? So around the other three sides, you need to use your pinking shears to finish the edges. Get as close to the edge as possible so you're not taking any material off. And this will stop your material from fraying. Now, if you do not have a pinking shears and you are machine sewing, what you need to do is do a zigzag stitch around the edge. Again, this is to stop the material from fraying. So you can see here, that's the pinking shears finished edge, where this is the zigzag stitching finished edge. And this will stop the fabric from fraying. So this is going to be the outside of my fabric. So I'm turning it around so that I've got the inside facing up towards me. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a gusset in the top. Now, for this, I like to create a concealed seam. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your iron and you're going to press down a small little line, and that is about, I normally make that about 1 centimeter, okay? So press down 1 centimeter like that with your iron, okay? And then we're going to fold it over and make a gusset that is about 2.5 centimeters wide, okay? So you've ironed your gusset at the top and you folded it over so that you have a finished edge here, not a raw edge. Now, if you've ironed this well, you probably won't need to pin it, but if you did want to pin it, you could put some pins in along. Just get a pin that's not too thick. You could put pins in along here. Now, a trick for when you're pinning, make sure that if you're going to be sewing on your machine like this, that you have the pins that you can pull them out easily. If you are sewing by hand, you will sew along here. You want to make sure that you sew so that you're trapping all those 3 layers of fabric. Just a straight stitch the whole way along. On the machine, use a stitch length of about 2 or 3. Now this seam is finished, you're going to turn your fabric over so that the right side, the outside, is facing up towards you. You're going to fold it over so that the sides and the bottom are matching. If you're sewing by hand, you start your back stitch here and you sew all the way along here and then along the bottom. Do not sew here. This must be left free for the ribbon to come out. The machine is the same. You start here, you sew along and down, turning at the corner. So on my sewing machine, I'm going to be starting like this. So I'm just going to put some pins together. Just get some pins and just pin to keep these two edges even and together. You don't need too many pins, but you just want to make sure that you're sewing through both layers of the fabric. And there. So again, whether you're sewing by hand or by machine, don't sew here. So I'm going to sew that on my machine now. So I've sewed along these edges, and what I do at the corner here is I'm just going to cut the corner, and I'm just going to trim it there as well, just so that it has a nice finish on each corner. Now, the width of your seam allowance is completely up to you. I've done quite a narrow one here because I wanted to make my bag as big as possible. The pattern that I gave you allows for a 3 centimeter seam allowance on the side, so it just gives you a little bit of space if you make a mistake or you need to re-sew it. Make sure before you turn it inside out, just go along with a ruler or a pencil and just check that there's no holes in your seam, because if there is, you just need to go back and re-sew that part. If you're sewing by hand, give yourself that 3 centimeter seam allowance, because I'm going to show you in the next little video segment how you'd finish your seam so you don't have any raw edges. In the meantime, turn your bag inside out, poke out the corners, check that you've got no little bits of string. Now, and we're on to the very final step of our bag project. For this, you need your safety pin and your shoelaces or material or whatever you're going to use for this. Now, if you don't have any shoelaces and you want to make your own piece of ribbon, I'm going to show you how to do that in another separate video. Say you have these shoelaces and you want to use them, you need to make sure that your length that you're choosing is 3 times the width of your bag. Okay, so 3 times the width of your bag. So once, then twice, and 3 times. So that'll be plenty long. So I've got a pretty big gusset here. 2 options with this. You can sew this together, okay? So you could sew it, hand sew it together, do stitching, or you could tie it in a knot. I'm going to sew it together because it's quite thick. And these were handles from a bag that the bag went in the recycling, and then the handles I was able to use for this project. So it's nice and strong, just check it. Get your safety pin, okay, and put it through one end of whatever you're using. Find the beginning of your gusset and just pull it through. So pull the material around it and then pull it through. So pushing to bunch the material up and then pull the material like that. So bunch it all up, okay, and then pull the material around. So you're moving your rope through all the time till you come out the other side. Now pull it gently here. You don't want to lose it from the other end. That's why you want to have it nice and long, because you can always shorten it if you want to. I like to have it long so that I can create a loop. So just pull it so that it's even. Just get it even there. Pull it out so that it is just there. Just be careful there. It is. Pull it out there nice and gently. Now just pull it along there a little bit more. Now, so here I just tend to do a knot, a loop, and knot through. Depending on what you're using, you might want to end up sewing it together. Whatever way you do it, just make sure it's nice and secure and that there's no chance it's going to break. Now, so there you have your reusable bag made from materials that you had in your house, recycled and upcycled. So we're never wasting anything. We're always reusing before we buy new. could even use it to store your sewing supplies in. And there you go.